All right. Nothing like being a little fashionably late. Let's see where we are today. I hope everybody is doing good. I was gone for a couple days, so this will be good. It'll be good for me to get back in the swing of things here. Give me a second to kind of get everything squared away here. Da-da-dee, All right. All right. So we're going to get back into the swing of things. No live stream midweek. Usually I'm live streaming Wednesday night. Sometimes it's a Tuesday. I'm not a professional. I do this for fun. So I was gone for a couple days, missed the midweek live stream, and so I figured I would catch up with you all here on a Friday night. What better time? Forgive me if this makes a noise. The spacecraft, how's it going? Welcome in. All right. Yeah, forgive me as I kind of just fumble around here and get things set up. I hope everybody's having a good Friday. Looking forward to a good weekend. I'm kind of digesting the debate, the presidential debate. It was interesting, and it was interesting because one of the past videos that I did, we were looking at Jordan Peterson's interview. Who was it with? Dr. Paul Kenger, and just kind of this idea of the Luciferian system, the Luciferian system sort of permeating, I guess, and maybe people becoming more aware of it than they would have been in the past. Hey, Miss McGillicuddy, good to see you. Yeah, we missed the midweek. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll try Friday night. See how everybody's doing. I was gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, traveling on Thursday, and so kind of got a little bit of a time off today, and so I figured I might pop in for a little bit with the debate last night, just kind of digest the debate with regards to some of the things that we have been talking about. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm tired. I'm not tired per se. I think I have like allergies and whatnot. Because it was this political spiritual warfare video where we highlighted some of this, some of the conversation, some of the talk within kind of Tim Pool. I listen to Tim Pool. He's kind of like the independent news person that I go to. If there's others out there that are good, let me know, because I'm always interested in hearing kind of different perspectives. But it's just interesting how much they talk about, like, the devil's behind it or something like that. It's like, would we have been there? Would we have been having that conversation years ago? And I think that takes me to the point of what I thought one of the most profound points of this interview with Jordan Peterson about Marx and the devil was, everybody would say, well, Marx is an atheist, of course, like, no big deal. Like, he's not some Satanist or something like that. And the idea that atheism was actually a mask for his darker allegiance to a more Luciferian, rebellious spirit. And you see that in the fruit of it, not to start off on a really dark note, but that's the whole point of this, is that politics is downstream of theology. What comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. It will determine how you interact with the people around you, how you build community, how you structure a political system. And it's funny because on one hand you just say, well, Marx is it's just economic theory, no big deal. Well, but what's the fruit of it? The fruit of it is mass death. And so you just kind of look at that and go, okay, there's definitely something darker going on here. Okay, yeah, I just got into the Patrick Bet-David podcast a little bit. Dave Rubin's a good one. Who is another one? I mean, I was listening to, oh gosh, what's the other guy who's kind of like Dave Rubin? But they just kind of got annoying and a little bit too partisan. And I don't know. I really like, I like this little corner. I like TLC because you get a lot of people from a lot of different perspectives. And sometimes, some of those other podcasts, and that's one of the reasons I think I stick with Tim Pool, is as much as I don't necessarily, I don't have any affinity for Tim himself. He seems to bring on a lot of very interesting guests who have different perspectives, and it's that dialogue that I really crave, that I think is ultimately what's good, which is one of the reasons I sort of highlight Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Russel Brand, and the likes. Okay. Scott, welcome in. What's going on, everybody? Mills, good to see. I'm glad everybody's hanging out, man. It's good. I like Friday night. It's an unusual time for me, but I mean, it's summer. It's like, man, let's just chill. So let's just chill and talk about the Luciferian political theory that is emerging. Yeah, just lighthearted conversation for a Friday night. But I mean, ultimately, and we'll get to it. I'll sort through my tabs here. And we'll get to some of the positives here towards the end. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to download a little bit from last night's debate and tie it into some of the conversations we've been having on this podcast. And I was thinking about it too. This is not a political podcast. It's a theology podcast. But of course, as I said, politics is downstream of theology. And I was looking back at some of these other videos, and I do bring in Francis A. Schaeffer quite a bit. And in fact, I bring him in as an interlocutor, as a person to have sort of dialogue with Jordan Peterson. I feel like Dr. Michael Heiser and Joe Rogan kind of are conversant with each other. They kind of talk about the same things. They ask the same questions. Jordan Peterson seems a little bit more political, a little bit more philosophical. And so Francis Schaeffer seems to be a good interlocutor with Jordan Peterson. And of course, both Schaeffer and Heiser are dead. And so, but we can use their content. And that was one thing that Schaeffer was always interesting. He's a Christian, a theologian, philosopher, but he always worked this out politically. He always understood that there were political ramifications for the things that he was teaching, that ideas have consequences, that beliefs influence behavior. And you really do see that in Schaeffer's 10-part miniseries, How Should We Then Live? And so I've used some clips from that, and so I'll try to sort of remember. There was a clip I couldn't find. I was trying to find it before the live stream, but there was a clip that I used of the illustration that Schaeffer has of the Roman bridge crumbling under the weight of the ever increased pressures of society. That essentially that's why Rome fell as a political system. Is that society, the pressures of society are going to increase, and your system needs to be able to endure that pressure. And any humanist system or any sort of Luciferian system that's built off of rebellion and not harmony with the Creator is going to fail. And we're seeing that. I think that's what last night's debate displayed for us. In just, I don't know, stark contrast to the reality that we all want to live in. It was just like, these people can't really be who we're listening to. And so I think we'll start here with Jon Stewart. Again, in the spirit of listening to many different voices, oftentimes I find Jon Stewart to be highly annoying, but I did grow up listening to Jon Stewart before I became a Christian, and I still have an affection for him, and I still enjoy his humor, even though I disagree almost fundamentally on every point that he makes. All right. Thanks for hanging in there while I try to work out whatever's going on with my throat. All right. So here's Jon Stewart's take. Let me know what you think.
Because this cannot be real life. It just can't. We're America. God. Because this cannot be real life.
Yeah, this cannot be real life. Why? Because it's not. It's theater. It's theater. And even what Jon Stewart is doing is theater. His reaction is theater. It's and that's where we have to be kind of. It's hard, I'll get to this tweet that I posted, but it's not just the devil's behind every bush, or whatever, and we have to be discerning. But there's a lot of deception going on, and so to be discerning about that deception is one thing, and to be aware that everybody's kind of playing a game. Everybody's kind of involved in some level of theatrics, and theater is good when you know it's theater. Theater is deception when people are trying to get you to think that this is real life. That's where things get a little harder to understand. Okay, I'm going to do this really annoying thing, but I'm just realizing I was gone for a week and I'm kind of out of frame. Anyway, I'll deal with it. Thanks for hanging in there. Okay, the RFK debate. That was really interesting, to Miss McGillicuddy's point, because RFK was essentially, and shout out to Grim Grizz. He was the one that pointed this out. Is that RFK essentially Paul Vanderclayed the debate. He played clips and then he talked. He talked in between the clips, and so what you see there is that there is a new dialogue emerging. It really is a new form of dialogue. I mean, I do this. I run this podcast, and essentially what I do is I take clips from other people's content. And so there's people who look at that and they're like, I got a comment this week that's like, hey man, you talk too much. And I'm like, well, it's my podcast, so I don't know what. And yes, of course, I'm using other people's clips and stuff like that. So I get what they are saying. Like, I'm talking over somebody else. But, essentially I am I'm trying, it's an attempt to make a new kind of dialogue using a dialogue that already exists. And this is what Grim Grizz was pointing out in the RFK debate. He PVK'd the debate. He took clips and then he created a new dialogue. Sorry, you guys probably hear that and I'm talking over it. He created a new dialogue off of their dialogue. So people are catching on. This is how it used to be this way in books. Somebody would write a book, somebody else would write a book, and the second book would engage with the first book, and that process was a lot slower. And now with the internet and with podcasting, that process is happening much faster, and it's available to more people at a faster rate of speed. And so you have this distributed cognition that takes place, which I do think that's one of the reasons Joe Rogan brings on crazy people onto his podcast, and he just lets them talk, because he knows that eventually the internet hive mind will sort out all the BS, and we'll see. And so, but that just takes me to this phenomenon that we are in, just a new stage of that dialogue. There's a new formation of that dialogue, and it's happening faster. And there is sort of this, distributed cognition, or a way for all of us to sift through it. And what would happen, because I'm a student of classical works, classical literature, theology, and philosophy, and what you see historically happening is that the strongest ideas will endure. To my point about Francis Schaeffer. The strongest ideas will endure the ever-increased pressures of time. And there's something to that. But also, the reason that it used to take so much time is that it took a long time for people to become exposed to a new book. Let's say Nietzsche's work, or even Charles Darwin, or something like this, that eventually, or to stay in line with our theme for tonight, Karl Marx, the works of Karl Marx. It took time for that to disseminate through the population. And so, of course, the process took longer, and what it looked like is that the strongest ideas endured through time. Now, the strongest ideas are being sifted by that many more people. The ideas are being sifted by just in a far greater group of people, faster. And what's emerging, I think, is something similar, that we will know quicker who's full of crap and who's actually being honest. And that's why I'm attracted to podcasts like Joe Rogan. I think his curiosity is very genuine. I think he's a genuine kind of skeptic. I think that there are podcasts out there that are by smarter people, but they're hard to listen to because they're conventional. It's just people just recycling whatever sort of ideological basis they come from, whether it be I'm thinking of Richard Dawkins. I just found out that he had a podcast, but of course I don't know that Richard Dawkins has a podcast because I'm not I don't find the man interesting. I don't find him to be genuine. I think that's changing, but of course, to me, it's just like he seems stuck in an ideology, and so okay, that's kind of yeah. So to Grim Grizz's point, sorry, that was a little bit of a diatribe. Thank you for that comment, because it was something that I observed, and obviously Grim Grizz observed it, that RFK did this other debate, this new form of dialogue that those who are in the podcast space, or particularly TLC, are very familiar with this. Okay, I need to change this so I can see the comments better. Thank you. Give me a second. Hang in there. Okay. I'm kind of looking way over. Okay. Because okay. So the question, hard to meet early young Christians. Yeah, I don't know about that. New converts. There's a lot of new converts out there for sure. Okay. It sounds like you guys kind of engaged with that. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Some people just can't. I get it. Yeah, and to Scott's point about the comments, I mean, one of the things that I think holds people back from doing a podcast, or even putting their stuff out on YouTube in particular, is that the comment section can be kind of brutal. One of the things that I have tried to do very intentionally with my podcast is actually engage in those comments. And this is totally against what Joe Rogan would say, and he's sort of the mentor of podcasting. He just says, post it and forget about it. Don't go back and read comments. And I just do something different. What I try to do, because part of the reason I am doing a podcast is to create dialogue. I really want to engage in comments, but what I want to do, and you guys can help me do this, is build an environment in the comment section that is welcoming and wholesome and warm and hospitable. And so there's comments on my podcast that are, cringy, and there's people that come and just point out the mistakes that I make, and it's fine. I want to leave those up there. Some comments, it's just like, this is not really the culture of this podcast, and so I will delete them if they're bad enough. But yeah, for the most part, if it's a well thought out comment, even if it's totally critical of maybe my ideas or something like that, I welcome it. And so, yeah, to Scott's point, it's like, yep, you go in there, that's where, sort of being a little bit of a Calvinist helps me out. So a little nod to PVK and the Reformed group out there. So I don't know how Calvinist Paul is. You seem, I don't know. How Calvinist are you? Yeah, I applaud your engagement in the comments, but if people flake out or just absurd, do your best to shake the dust off your feet. Yeah, and there's times where it's like, you know what, I just don't have the energy to engage in the comments. Some of the comments encourage more of my process. It's part of me thinking through this. Some of you guys know, if you've watched the podcast for long enough, I usually release a podcast that is at the edge of what I'm comfortable, like, in my own understanding. Like, I think I get this. I think I understand this. I think I have a grasp of this. I rarely, I mean, I build off of the stuff that I'm confident in, and I feel like I know well enough to make some sort of meaningful content. But I'm constantly pushing myself to think through this stuff, and so it can be a little bit of an unnerving feeling to sort of put this out there and go, I'm not really sure what I believe about this. And so as people comment, I kind of go, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, no, okay, right, that's good. I hadn't thought about that, and then that's why you'll see 3 or 4 podcasts kind of in the same vein as I work something out. What's up, Migmo? You missed so much good stuff. You can just scroll back. I mean, all the good stuff is in the comments. Upcycle, what's up? Thank you. Hey, man, thank you so much for that. What time is it out where you are? Gosh, it's 8:20. Thank you guys for hanging out. Love it. What's up, Christian? See, Ups gives out the memberships, and then I get to see who's lurking. Good. Thank you. Much love. Yeah, so we're digesting that. We're digesting that debate, and I think John Stewart helps us here. His reaction is that can't possibly be real, and my thought is you're exactly right, because it's theater. Yeah, Scott and I are in the same club, man. We're newbies. I know just enough to make a fool, and that's okay. That's part of dialogue. And I've said this before in other places, but part of dialogue is the willingness to become vulnerable. The Greek philosophers, and this is why I think Joe Rogan's podcast is as good as it is, because he understands jiu-jitsu. He understands wrestling. And the Greek philosophers, they linked the art of wrestling and philosophy together. When you wrestle, you have to become vulnerable. You have to be willing to have someone put their hands on you and try to pin you down. That's basically the same thing we're doing in a dialogue. I'm putting my ideas out there knowing somebody's going to grab a hold of that and try to pin it down and show me how weak that idea is. And then it's my job to wrestle through it and say, okay, no, I truly think that I can learn more, or we can look at it from a different perspective, and try to reposition yourself so that, not that you want to be ideologically committed just for the sake of the ideology, but to really, really have it challenged, so that if it's strong enough, it will endure. And that's why, Jordan Peterson's "We Who Wrestle with God" thing, I think is timely. So, Mick Mo, I appreciate that. All right. So John Stewart saying what we all kind of feel, and then here was Russel Brand's take. Let me know what you guys think. This is kind of a short clip.
Degree of delirium is perhaps helpful when trying to interpret and appreciate what we witnessed last night. If that wasn't the end of the Joe Biden presidency, I don't know what people are waiting for. A physical death, effluvia to emerge from his body. What do people require? The problem is, of course, that his senescence, amentia, and obvious decay is the perfect metaphor for the decay of the system that he is nominally the head of. And now,
did you guys catch that? It's the decay of the system.
An obvious decay is the perfect metaphor for the decay of the system that he is nominally the head of. And now we are seeing the mainstream establishment being confronted with what you have long known. This degree of delirium is perhaps
what we have long known. What is it that we have long known? Yeah, okay. There's a gentrification. What am I saying? Not gentrification. People are getting older. That's the word I'm looking for. There's just, people that are in political power just getting older and older and older, and you're seeing that wear down. And is that the system, or is there something else? I mean, I think that I think it's actually this. I think what Russel Brand is touching on as he sort of illustrates the decline of people who are in political power is also touching on this recession of modernity. And okay, so as religious belief receded in the modern West, political energy moved in to fill the gap. So as sort of the secular world, quote unquote secular world, grew in its reach and its scope, religious belief receded, or it became private. We don't talk politics, we don't talk religion, keep that to yourself. And so this religious belief receded in the modern West, and political energy moved in to fill in the gap. Nature abhors a vacuum. And so there was a vacuum left by the recession of biblical theology, theological, spiritual presence in the day-to-day life of people living, in the West in particular, that energy has run out. That's what I think we're seeing. That political energy, that political spirit has run out. And again, to go back to Francis Schaeffer, it just, on its face, by itself, humanity, sort of just building from a foundation of the self, or amplified humanity. We'll get to the Ubermensch here in a second. Humanism, secular humanism in particular, these were weak foundations to build a system on. Now, going back to the point about Karl Marx, his atheism was a mask for a more Luciferian type of spirituality that he was attracted to. We see that in the fruit, the outworking of his political theory. Now, maybe that's an oversimplification? I think that Marx happened at the same time as sort of like Darwin, and there were other factors going on that said, of course, we can just kill our political opponents because everybody's just a meat sack. Nietzsche is part of this death of God movement, this receding of the religious belief being the central part of society. Nietzsche had a lot to do with that death of God, that recession, and what moved in. And even Nietzsche talks about this in his poem. He says, what sacred games will we have to invent now that God is dead? And so we invented sacred games, we've invented political theater, and the energy has run out. I think that's what we're seeing. It has proven a weak substitute for religion. Now, I don't really like the word religion, but I don't have a better one really. What I mean is theology in a way. Like I think that's more what I'm talking about. And there's a reason religious belief prevails. Okay, there's a reason this Luciferian belief prevails as well. And so I think what we're seeing is you're seeing at the same time that there is sort of a revival going on in a surprising rebirth of belief in God, as Justin Brierley puts it. You're also seeing a sort of rebirth, maybe not even a rebirth, but just a more overt declaration of some more Luciferian types of systems. It was Duncan Trussell on Joe Rogan the last time they were on Joe Rogan. I think it was a couple weeks ago. He just came out and they were just talking about Satanism, and like yeah, nah, no big deal. I mean, they're pretty much Christians, you know, and all this other stuff. So, all right, there was a question. That political battery running out observation was great. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm glad other people are feeling that. I mean, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it had some legs, but it didn't have very long legs, you know? And Schaeffer points this out with Rome. Rome built a system on their gods, but their gods were just amplified humanity. They were not true divinity. They're just big people. And our secular Western political system is basically the same. There's just big people and there's little people. And the big people are more equal than the little people. They have more rights than the little people. And but those big people are falling apart, you know. And so the energy has run out. Yeah, it's hubris. You're right, Scott. I completely agree. That is the Luciferian motif. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Rebellion to God. Okay, that's hubris. That's pride. I can. I don't need God because I can do this. And I'm sorry if Twitter, like, this just keeps me kind of squared away. I'm sorry if it's not big enough for you guys to actually read. Hopefully I'm not doxing myself or anything. Rebellion to God is the Luciferian motif, or like Scott is saying, it's the pride. It's the trying to take the position of God and saying you don't need God. So it's not just the devil behind every bush or whatever, but it's a whole system built on the disobedience of God and the rejection of his created order. And in this conversation with Jordan Peterson and Paul Kengor, I don't think I'm saying his last name right, they point this out, that even if Marx wasn't like overtly, or Marx and Lenin, they bring up Lenin here in this clip, weren't like overtly practicing Satanists or something like that. They were probably in some ways participating in a system of disobedience to God. Now, I do think that the atheism of Marx was probably a mask. Gerontification. Yeah, sounds like gentrification. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. Upcycle, saving the day here. Okay, let me, again, tell me what you think here. Tell me if this isn't what we're kind of dealing with. Once I get the actual yeah.
This, and I'm not saying that I endorse this. As an academic, I can't say if this is correct. There were times when Marx seemed to be possessed by demons. That's what Paine wrote. And now this I would at least more endorse. Marx had the devil's view of the world and the devil's malignity. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he seemed to know that he was accomplishing works of evil. I think that gets closer to it. Mm-hmm. Now, Pastor Richard Wurmbrand, who wrote the famous book Tortured for Christ, and was tortured for Christ in Romanian prisons by communist captors who were shouting, "I am the devil," while they were torturing him. Mm-hmm. He did a book called Marx and Satan. He's convinced that Marx was a Satanist and did some things ritualistically that it might have even been satanic. Mm-hmm. But I can't say that. I can't endorse that. But you see everything goes versus including the Russian Civil War. Mm-hmm. If that's not the devil, according to Robert Conquest, W.H. Chamberlain, the first historian of the Russian Revolution, 500,000 people were killed from 1917 to 1923 under Lenin, not even including the Russian Civil War. If that's not the devil's work, I don't know what the hell is, right? But
so there you go. Yeah, I mean, you see the fruit of it, and you judge it by its fruit. And so they move there from Marx to Lenin, and man, it's C.S. Lewis said something to the effect, I think I'm going to get the quote wrong, but he said that the chief end of humanity will be the abolition of man. And then if you the mayor of Cologne, post-war Germany, I'm going to forget his name here for a second. There's a story between him and Billy Graham, and Billy Graham was touring or something like that, and he was talking, this mayor, Cologne, Germany, mayor of Cologne. Anyway, the name is escaping me. He asked Billy Graham, he said, do you really believe in the resurrection of Jesus? And so he's looking out at the destruction of World War II. And he said, and Billy Graham said, if I didn't believe in the resurrection of Jesus, I would have no gospel to preach. Konrad Adenauer was the name. And Konrad Adenauer looked out the window at the destruction of the city, and he said, outside of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there is no hope for humanity. That, I think, is what we're looking at. Like, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of destruction. Marxism, you could be convinced that it's an innocent political theory. But what has it done for 100 years? I know I'm being generalistic there. I mean, it's killed a lot of people, essentially. And so that tells you what spirit is behind it. It is this. It is a rejection of God and his created order. It's a rejection of how God has ordered things. And I don't mean that to say like, oh, God, just, as some sort of dictator, is saying, do this, do this, do this. But God created order. God created beauty. God created the world to be in balance or harmony. And when you destroy that, it is to our own detriment. And so that's where it gets a little bit dark. We're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. Thanks for sticking around with me. I know that's you look at the debate last night and you kind of go, yeah, it's pretty grim, but there is hope. Oh my gosh. There is a skunk in my chicken coop. So I may have to cut the stream short. Let me see if I can get through this really quick. So that's the Ubermensch idea. I mean, this was Vivek's question at the end of it. We don't need to play the clip. Biden's not actually running the country, so says Vivek, which raises an uncomfortable question: who is? And I said the Ubermensch is the big man, the overman. And I'm gesturing to Nietzsche there intentionally, and in a sense, I have some of this in the back of my mind, where we have looked at the AI, artificial God man. It's the big man. It is the Antichrist. Like we're talking about the Luciferian motif. It's the same story with the Antichrist. Amplified humanity, try to build a bigger man, try to build a perfect man, try to build the godlike man, or claim godlike status, and then you can have power, you can maintain power. So it's the Ubermensch. I don't know who the Ubermensch is, but it's the Ubermensch running the country. That's the system we live in. Sorry. But there's hope. There's hope. Really interesting thread here. Shout out to Mostly Not Working, sharing this with me. How were these carefully crafted New York Times pieces coming out within an hour of the debate saying Biden, it's time to drop out? These people either move faster than any bureaucracy in human history, or these pieces were already pretty much baked. And that's true. I mean, probably somebody wrote skunk in the chicken coop. Thanks for the reminder, Ups. I'm about to go figure out that. Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to text my wife really quick. And maybe some people wrote two articles, based off of Biden winning the debate, or supposedly winning, Biden supposedly losing, and so they had them ready. To some degree, that is true. They had them cooked already. But then it goes, okay, and then we need a religious revival, not just in the States, but in the West. See, this is the religious belief receding in the modern West. And we're having this revival. Your prediction on people being more and more politically homeless and people taking religion more intellectually seriously is being more and more likely. We need Jesus. And then he shouts out Justin Brierley, and then Justin Brierley shows up. So there you go. Things are happening. And Justin Brierley, of course, is the surprising rebirth of belief in God guy. He's documenting this whole thing. And so I think what we're seeing is as the modern secular post-Enlightenment structure falls apart around us, as the water recedes, what emerges is those foundations that have the strength to endure. One of those, I think, will endure for all eternity, and that is the foundation of the person of Christ, right? He's the chief capstone, so he's the foundation too. I don't know. I'm mixing my metaphors here. But there's also, I think, as people become re-enchanted, they will, dragons will reemerge and heroes. Let's say it that way. Dragons will reemerge and heroes will reemerge, because people aren't comfortably sitting in their beliefs in some sort of humanistic utopia, some sort of secular humanistic utopia. That has failed. We've seen it. And now what will endure? And I think it's finding the person of Jesus. Our belief is it needs to be in Jesus. That's it. Okay. So when I say religious belief, I actually mean the answer is not an answer. The answer is a person. That's what I'm saying. And there's something to that. It's not a political theory. And so Christ, who's the Word of God, the Word became flesh, created all things. He sustains all things. And so if that's true, if in him all things were created, and if in him all things are sustained, then we have reason for great hope, even in the midst of what looks like a lot of chaos and destruction and decay. To use Russel Brand's word, the system has decayed. Well, that system never had a chance of enduring, because if it's not founded on the person of Christ, outside of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there is no hope for humanity. So if it's outside of that, then it will crumble. It always does, just like it did with Rome. And but the one thing that doesn't crumble is his kingdom. I mean, he's rebuilding it. And you know what? Go ahead, look. If you want some hope, let me see if I can find this really quick, and I'll leave you guys with this. A former professor of mine, I studied at Knox. I'm just going to wiggle here for a second. Hang with me. Has started to put out some content, and I think it's really good. Dr. Warren Gage. If you want to find his YouTube channel, I'll go ahead and leave a link to this. His series on the Book of Revelations that he's putting out, and I said the Book of Revelation, not Revelations. I might have almost slipped there.
Welcome to the Dr. Warren
it's
Gage
amazing.
podcast.
We've
begun an exposition of Revelation 21 and 22. These are very dense verses with a
there's
lot
a lot of
that's
hope,
implied.
man. When you look through. Sorry, I'm talking over him. Gosh, there's a link in the chat. Shout out to Dr. Warren Gage, very smart man. Obviously loves the Word of God. And I found the first few videos of this that he's put out so far are super encouraging. And maybe that's a little bit of nostalgia for me, having sat in some of his lectures, even if they were online lectures. They're great. So going through the book of Revelation and the kingdom and the city that God is building, the city that Christ is building, it is a beautiful, beautiful city. And although the cities and the systems of this world that we're familiar with are crumbling, his kingdom is not. And so thank you guys for hanging in there with me tonight. And yeah, thanks. On a Friday. It was fun. I guess I'm going to go catch a